Well, he hems and haws, and he finally makes the call. And obviously, like, I table my hand, and I'm good. And then I realize, as he mucks his cards, that he only has $40. He's got about $40 left in his stack after the call. And I was like, oh my God, how did I not see that?
All right, for one last time in 2025 with a voice that is not great, it is the Crush Live Poker Podcast. Listening to that as we cruise down Interstate 580 to Peppermill to play some poker. I'd like for it to be playing 3-5. I think that is the better, more sustainable, long-term game to spread here in the mornings at Peppermill. But that said, if it's 5-10, it's 5-10. That's going to be what we play. Obviously, the last vlog of the year, I will talk about the year at the end of the vlog. Spoiler alert, it wasn't good. The one thing I know is going into 2026, the games aren't going to be getting any better. So it's going to be an issue of playing better, making fewer mistakes. As despite the fact I undoubtedly ran worse than I've ever run in a year in 2025, I also made too many mistakes. So, in the last session of the year, I'd like not to make any today. Vlog 331 comes your way from Peppermill, Reno, a place where the slot machines now have screens behind screens, a place where high limit slots has been revamped, and the slot tournament area has been moved as a result. If there's one thing I know about slot tournaments, there's a lot of skill. And a place where a man named Namoff sent me 5 separate texts telling me that he hates my face. In my defense, it is meant for radio. And speaking of guys named Brian, I would catch up on some of Action Brian Rodriguez's videos. And if you watched my latest short, you saw me lose with a set of 7s on a 10-6-7-8 board in what really was the only significant hand I played on the day. That same night, I would see Brian flop a set of 7s on basically the same board and win. The key difference? He got his board to pair. Anyway, I'd get into the poker room at 11:30, and the game was starting as a short-handed 5-10 game. And while the lineup wasn't great, it wasn't horrible either. I'd start tracking the session on the Left Pocket app, which you can try for a month for free with promo code DEACH, and I would try to get involved in the first orbit, raising Queen Jack of Hearts, and fortunately I didn't c-bet King King 9, as Bomb Pot Blue had flopped a full house. He would run significantly better than me on this day. And after the first hour, I hadn't managed to win a single hand, but thankfully, unlike James the Professor, I didn't get all in with a set against queens and then watch a queen peel off. And it looked like that might be my opponent in this next hand when we get 2 limps, and he would make it 55 from the cutoff. I have jacks in the small blind and put in a 3-bet, making it 165. And to my surprise, I would get a fold about 5 seconds later. We'd get a limp middle position, and I would raise to 40 in the low jack with King 9 of spades. Folds back around to middle position, and he calls. So with 90 in, the board comes out 3-4-8 with 2 spades, and he bets out for 60. And by the way, this is not a tight player. I call to 60, and with 210 in, the turns, the 5 of spades giving me the flush. He now fires out for 150 here, and the way I see it, if he wants to keep betting this hand for me, I'm going to let him. And with 510 in, the river is another 5. And now he bets 125. The unfortunate part is, I have played with this opponent enough to know that this is not going to be a small flush very often. I brought up the concept of guys betting smaller with big hands and smaller with bluffs in a previous video. And to state the obvious, I'm not that interested in getting stacked on what is really the first hand I've gotten involved with on this day. So assuming this will either be a bluff or a bigger hand than mine a lot of the time, I just call. And with 760 in, it was something I didn't expect. He had flopped top pair and actually turned that into a bluff, showing ace-8. So pretty clear he wasn't calling a raise anyway, and we would end up stacking those chips. Then we'd get a raise from the low jack to 30 and a call in the cutoff. I have ace-9 of diamonds in the small blind and make this call, as does the big blind. And with 120 in, the flop is 9 and 9-5 with 2 spades. I go for the check raise here, but as often happens, it gets checked through. And amazingly, the turn is the 4th 9. I gotta build a pot up here at this point. I'm gonna bet fairly small. It's pretty clear I'm not up against monsters here. I just bet 40. Big blind folds, but as it would turn out, the other two aren't going anywhere. So, with 200 in, we're 3 ways to the river, which obviously changes nothing for me, and it was a question of, did it change anything for either of these guys? I bet 125 here, hoping that it did, but neither guy gives this any thought, as they both muck extremely quickly. I'd lose the next 3 small pots I'd play, and the man next to me would start drinking liquid death. Let me ask you this. If I just take off the top of the tee, does it look like liquid deach? I would then 3-bet ace-king, only to get limp called under the gun by bomb pot blue, which was terrible news, and another player called as well. And I would simply give up on a queen-high board, worried about the one player, but would end up losing to the other, as blue also ended up having ace-king in this hand. We then get a double board bomb pot. And I just want to shout out all of the dealers that stack the pots as they go. That's about half the dealers at Peppermill. It's a split pot game. Save some time and stack throughout the process. Low jack opens to 20. Cutoff calls, and I would look down at ace queen off and squeeze to 100. Original razor calls and the cutoff calls. Both are guys who give action for sure. So I had accomplished my goal of playing a pot in position against 2 guys that I want to be up against. I had done that much. And with 315 in, the flop rolls off 6-4-3 with 2 hearts, and it gets checked to me, and I would decide to take a shot at this pot for a half pot size bet, making it 150. Low jack folds pretty quickly, but the cutoff isn't going anywhere. Kind of his style. So with 615 in, the turn is another low heart. After stacking up his last 300, he finally announces check. This is simply not a good spot to bluff. I check back, interested to see if I could hit a 4th heart and if it would be any good if I did. But the river is a brick. And then he jams all in for that 300. He could be bluffing with a better hand here. I have no choice but to fold the hand. This was the exact type of hand I am going to try my hardest not to play in 2026. I knew pocket 3s from early position should just be a fold. But I would make the attempt to limp, because limpin' is pimpin', and just call the $20 straddle and see what would happen. But we get, as I kind of expected, a squeeze to 150 from the professor and a call from another player. I would just fold out the hand, and that was the flop. Just one last needle to stick in me after the worst year of poker that I've ever had. I'd get ace-king 2 more times, and it would be a similar result as the ace-queen hand. And then, oddly, I'd get into a spot against a very loose player where jack-7 really felt like it was going to be good on a 7-high board up until I got shown queen-7. That was unfortunate. And then bomb pot blue limps under the gun. That same loose player limps in the cutoff, and the small blind calls. I have pocket 10s in the big blind, and I raise to 45. Under the gun calls, cutoff calls, and the small blind comes in as well. So, with 180 in, I'm going to need to hit something here. And sure enough, I do on 10 jack king with 2 diamonds, so I have bottom set. Small blind checks, and I bet out here for 80. And to my amazement, all 3 of these guys call. So with 500 in, as I have become accustomed to saying throughout 2025, I get the single worst turn card in the deck. It's the queen of diamonds. Small blind checks, I check. Bomb pot blue under the gun also checks, which surprised me. And then the cutoff bets out for 200 into 500. Now I'm playing 1300 effective here. I can make this call and try to pair the board on the river because it feels pretty likely that I will have everyone beat if that happens. And I think I'm getting paid off if that occurs. So I put in the chips and then become surprised once again as under the gun would check call the 200 as well. So, with 1100 in, the river is a 9. So I guess in a weird way, I do improve my hand. Almost disastrously so. And the cutoff bets 400. I fold my what is now a straight, and under the gun, check calls with ace queen. So he had it on the flop and slow played it. The cutoff would show ace 6 offsuit here. So my read on the way he was playing could not have been more accurate. And he was the guy I was trying to play this hand against. As it would turn out, bomb pot blue would be in a dream scenario as the hand would unfold, and the two of them would chop it up, and this brutal session would reach its unfortunate conclusion. All right, so a pretty good start to the session, and an absolute nightmarish final 4 hours, wrapping up with that hand with the set of 10s. Because how else would things wrap up for me this year? An $896 loss, and going into 2026, got nowhere to go but up. All right, so good news, bad news time here on the vlog. Let's start with the good news. Just an amazing Christmas with my son, Austin, who's just about to be 6 years old. No one's going to be surprised that I bought him this. He's going to look like a stud in this thing. He's excited to wear it as he's been getting more and more into watching every Golden Knights game with me. He knows all the players right now. He gets super excited. It's so great. It's everything I wanted it to be as a parent. And then he asked for this. See how he does. Now, I never could properly ride this device, but we'll see if my son can. As he's got this lion on here. He seemed to like that. Anyway, so fun times there with Austin, but not fun times this year playing poker, even though I guess there were some of them. I managed to successfully make what I still think was the single best play I've ever made as a poker player, getting away from that set in the hand that you saw a couple of months back. But for the first time ever, I have officially booked a losing year. Not a big loss, maybe a week's worth of buy-ins or so, but it still stings. You know, I will admit, I was always proud, even though I certainly haven't made millions playing poker. I've done well, and it has changed my life with the money that I've made. But I've always been proud of the fact that at the end of every year, I've always come out ahead up until this year. So why did this happen? Well, there are a variety of reasons, and they all played a role into it. Perhaps the most significant reason is that poker did just become less of a part of my life this year. I just got plenty of other things going on, spending time with my son, spending time with my girlfriend, Anna, going on, vacations and things, trying to get into like skiing. Her and I have been doing that, getting back into golf. And of course, I still focus on my actual job, but I certainly don't think I would have booked a losing year if I had managed to play the amount of hours that I'd become accustomed to playing over the previous several years. My best years ever were 2021 and 2022. And those years I got over 1,000 hours in both years. Now let's see here. This year, I managed to play, I'm not even sure the answer, 572 hours. So barely the halfway mark of hours in terms of what I had been playing over the previous years. So I think that's the most significant reason. Then there's the quality of the games. There were a lot of good games this year. I think the games were at their best in the middle of summer, like in July. There were some really good games during that point. And I remember at the end of July, I had managed to basically dig myself out of the hole for the year, getting back to even for 2025. And then I managed to go on the single worst run I've ever been on from like early August through early September, which resulted in me taking a hiatus from poker throughout the rest of September. It was just mind-boggling, how many bad beats and things that I was able to take. It's one of those things where it's like you almost have to play poker for 15 years and then experience that to know that it's possible. because I guess I didn't. I didn't honestly think I could run that bad. But the fact of the matter is, in addition to running that bad, I also just made too many mistakes. Just made too many stupid mistakes, and I just played too many hands. I needed to play nittier. Of course, there's a lot of people who continue to needle me for playing what they claim to be too nitty, and they themselves are actually playing even nittier than me the whole time. It's like everyone wants you to play looser, but they themselves actually tighten up. Of course, it's been kind of frustrating in this vlog and in the short that you saw before this. Both times I think I played pretty tight poker over the entirety of the sessions and then waited for my set at the end, and of course managed to get my set correct both times. So a lot of factors to booking a small losing year. I did like the one commenter who actually got in there and he just said, hey, forget about this year. And that really is the best attitude to have. Forget about this year, move on, try to make fewer mistakes in 2026. So it certainly wasn't the way that I wanted to end this year, but I like to think that those of you who watch this vlog do it because you appreciate the fact that I don't try to glorify any of this. I just try to keep it real. And in this case, keeping it real is admitting to the fact that things did not go the way I was hoping they would go. But fortunately for me, it's not going to impact my life whatsoever. So I got that going for me. Hit those like and subscribe buttons. I genuinely appreciate that. You can follow along on Instagram at bendeach. We'll see you back here in 2026.